Hey folks, it's me, Ted. Today's topic is very weird. This is an attempt for me to break out of the more traditional types of things I talk about. I talk a lot about programming, talk a lot about game engines, that kind of thing, talk a lot about game prototyping. Today is weird because I'm going to go into a more speculative direction. This is it's in the oldest sense of the word essay. It's actually an attempt to say something that I have not said before or that I've not tried to say before. So by that very definition, it's not really scientific. It's pretty speculative. I actually suspect that it will be a polarizing talk. I will make reference to several controversial figures, people of interest, generally in the public awareness. Just because I talk about them doesn't mean I agree with everything they say, right? It's possible to talk about people, to talk about what they're saying or what they're doing, and just find it interesting. It's possible to just be interested in them. So that's usually why I talk about somebody. I think they're relevant to the discussion, or I just happen to find them interesting. So I think after this talk, you're either going to think I'm a genius, or you're going to think I'm like this guy. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so thesis. Minecraft, I believe, is an unusual phenomenon in gaming because not only is it the most top-selling game ever in terms of overall revenue, overall sales, it eclipses the next most successful game by twice as much. What I think is even more interesting about Minecraft as a case study is the fact that it was basically made by one guy. It also did not have many of the things which I would say are a staple of highly successful AAA produced type games. It did not have the polished, fabulous artwork. It had pixel art in a three-dimensional environment. So 3D kind of voxel art is what you find in Minecraft. If you are not familiar with Minecraft, which would be very unusual, this is what the artwork in Minecraft looks like. Now this actually looks a lot more polished than how it started. So be aware of that, because later on, bigger companies ended up taking on Minecraft and then doing something with it. So they were able to kind of put more capital into the game, right? And thereby make it have better graphics. But Minecraft has always been known for its pixel art style. So how does a game made by one guy compete with an entire industry with AAA scale funding, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? To me, this is perplexing. It's a question that I think requires an answer. I hypothesize that it did so by discovering a completely new game genre with gameplay that deeply resonates with human nature. And that genre is the survival crafting genre. So Minecraft, around the time that game came out, it is an era that gave birth to a number of games which fall into this survival crafting genre. Many of them have been very successful, and they are routinely in the Steam Top 100. Some examples. Terraria. Okay, what is Terraria? Terraria is basically side-scrolling Minecraft. Let's look that up. Side-scrolling Minecraft. Okay. Survival crafting, side-scrolling platformer, $400 million pixel art. kind of blows your mind. This is in an era where AAA companies exist. Rust, $670 million. Rust is a lot more refined. I'd say it's got more of a budget put into it. Definitely want to look that up. RimWorld is another one that's considered to be in that survival genre. $110 million. Look at the graphics for RimWorld. Not that spectacular. Okay, this is RimWorld. It's acceptable. It communicates the design. It's okay. It's very hand-drawn, right? So what is it about these games that we find so appealing? How is it that they can compete with these AAA juggernauts? Not just like compete like fist to fist, like Eclipse. Do twice as much, right? How is that? Again, I hypothesize it is because their gameplay deeply resonates with human nature. And of course, the subject of this video is my favorite game presently, Factorio. And that game made about $98 million, according to GameStats. Factorio, as you may or may not know, is a kind of, I am finding it here somewhere, it's a kind of survival crafting game where you build an automated factory on this alien world. We'll talk more about that. So why the survival crafting genre? What is it about that particular genre that deeply resonates with human nature? Well, I would say that evidence points us in the direction that the human species is an evolved biological species of hunter-gatherer which originated on the African savanna. We are survival crafters. At the deepest level, that is what we do. We run around, we find stuff, we put it together, we solve problems in our own environment, and a consequence of that is we get to continue to live, we get to take care of our loved ones, we get to have a nice, clean place to exist and create and prosper. We're all about survival crafting, fundamentally. So this genre, I believe, speaks to us at the deepest level, at an instinctual level, in a way that, say, although I love a lot of puzzle games can be almost abstract in a sense that they're just about the puzzle. A monster's expedition, right? So you're a guy wandering around in a world where there's all these trees and you knock them down and you solve these very interesting puzzles, but it doesn't speak to us, or to me at least, in the same kind of deep gut level that something like Factorio would. It feels slightly separated from my own nature in a way. Okay, so it's not that it's not a good game. I want to caveat that, and I want to say these are good games. I love Braid and I love The Witness. I love these deep puzzle games. What I am saying, though, is I don't think that they can achieve the kind of monumental success that something like a Factorio or a RimWorld or a Minecraft can, because they're lacking that deep connection to human nature. That's my hypothesis. So you might ask, how deep does this go? Right? And I did, much of this is inspired by me watching a bunch of Jordan Peterson lectures and finding them interesting. Okay. So I would say that this actually goes surprisingly deep. We might want to consider Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. This is very well-known work. It actually inspired Star Wars, interestingly enough. So much of the story in Star Wars comes from familiarity with Joseph Campbell's work. So I'm going to quote that book. And what Joseph Campbell is describing, he's describing the most common kind of narratives that we've seen throughout history. That every civilization or many civilizations seem to have a common kind of hero narrative that repeats over and over and over again. A lot of times that hero narrative can be a founding narrative for the civilization. It can be something that, say, the Babylonians would have described as how their civilization got started, or Rome would have described it as how their civilization got started. So many of these civilization starting narratives have this theme in common. And Joseph Campbell says the theme kind of goes like this. A hero ventures forward from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. That's really interesting. It's interesting to me because that description sounds exactly like the gameplay loops you find in Factorio. Now, I don't think the creators of Factorio, Mikhail Kovarik and his team, I don't believe that they were conscious. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong about this. I don't believe that they were consciously going, Joseph Campbell says that there's this hero narrative. I think that they instinctually designed Factorio to feel this way because it's what felt good to them. Because they are human beings and they share in this nature. That's what I believe. So, the loop in Factorio is something like your ship crashes on an alien world, you're thrown from your ordinary existence into a survival problem. You must not only venture out into a hostile wilderness, but you need to bring back resources like iron, copper, and oil to your home base. And with those resources, you build machines that eventually help you escape the planet. So if you've ever played Factorio, it's like that. I might even play some Factorio at the end of this just to show you what that's like, because eventually you get these very big bases going and you have trains going out to all the different locations, and then they bring back resources to your home base. So every time you go and connect a resource, that's like a little mini hero's adventure narrative happening in the game. So Factorio is not just one hero's adventure narrative. It's actually this multi-layered onion of hero's adventure narratives. There's the short-term hero's adventure of going out and acquiring a resource and bringing it back to your base so that you can research a new technology, yes. But then there's even the longer-term hero's adventure narrative where you are you're bringing back all of these resources so that you can build a rocket that can escape the planet so you can deliver boons to your civilization. That's a way of looking at it. So I believe that this kind of hero's adventure narrative, when present in a game, speaks very deeply to our nature. So when you are doing this kind of thing over and over in a game, it's hitting on something that is real, that is in us, an instinct that is there that we may not necessarily understand because it comes from biological evolution. Okay, take a little sip. A consequence of this, perhaps a funny consequence, is that I think there's this oddly deep connection between Jordan Peterson and Factorio. This goes beyond the various parody videos of Jordan Peterson and Factorio, which I will play because they're hilarious. So I'm going to start with that. This is an AI voice. This is Jordan Peterson talking with Joe Rogan about.
So I've been playing some
balancers.
Factorio lately.
Yeah.
I've been learning about balancers, right? Because that's meant to be efficient, right? And I found this guide for every balancer that's out there.
Oh, that's right.
God, I got to learn how to use blueprints.
Wow, look at that.
Here's the 4-to-4. That one's not so bad. Yeah, it's true.
Those belt balancers are hard, man. I'm up all night trying to get those to work.
Personally, I tend to just put down a load of balancers in a triangle and just...
Yeah, you see that on biter battles a lot.
I've also been working on getting an artillery turret up.
Have you seen the range on those things? It's insane.
Keep getting stuck on the piping for sulfuric acid, though. God, I hate fluids. It's hard enough making gray science, but the artillery will be worth it.
You ever seen that guy, what's his name? Nephrons, that's it. You seen him putting down smelting array?
No, I've not seen Nephrons.
Jamie, pull that up. Watch this.
Oh, wow.
I swear that guy's on speed or something.
That's quite something. Practice, I guess. Maybe it's his gaming chair.
I think all this game needs is like chimp biters or something.
Chimp biters?
Yeah, like they could climb trees and walls and they'll mount your tank and start tearing it a new one.
I was thinking flying biters. I'm not sure chimp biters really offer anything new, but you do, you, man.
All right, that's one of them. Hang on. Let's make sure that I got the audio. All right, so here's another one. This is Jordan Peterson in Factorio, and this is just people... It's kind of like the Jordan Peterson Command and Conquer videos. I thought it was hilarious.
I have no sense whatsoever how they're in a moral position to be lecturing the developing world about how they should accept limits to growth. Well, we used fossil fuels and oops, sorry about that and all the carbon, but you bastards, you can just accept your lot. And if you stop breeding so goddamn much, that would be a good thing too. Have some courage and some fortitude. Man the barricades and keep the degenerates away from the factory.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
All right, so that's Jordan Peterson in Factorio. Again, just because I talk about him doesn't mean I agree with everything he says. I just find it interesting. Okay. So what I don't think these folks realize is actually how deep the connection between Jordan Peterson and Factorio goes. I find this strange, actually, because if you watch a number of Jordan Peterson's lectures, he talks a lot about how you maybe shouldn't play video games so much and how, maybe clean your room instead and, maybe go be a part of your community and, actually get a job. And that's, $50,000 a year that you're wasting by playing those games and et cetera, et cetera. So he's not such a fan of video games. But it's strange to me because... And again, I have no connection to Jordan Peterson. I don't know what he's like in real life. Maybe there is some amount of video games he likes. Maybe he likes Factorio. I honestly don't know. It's just that's my impression from having watched his lectures. So I would say Factorio in particular is exactly the kind of game that has a mythological structure similar to the stories that Jordan Peterson discusses in his lectures. And so it very much as a cultural touchstone, so to say, it's relevant. It's actually deeply relevant. It is similar in many ways to being literate in the stories that he talks about. So that I find interesting. Right, so maybe there actually is a little bit of value in video games. So another odd similarity, I would say, is that Factorio at its core is a game about order and chaos. And Jordan Peterson is constantly talking about this topic. It's in every single lecture. He wrote a book about it. Okay. And that is because one of the core premises of Factorio is how you transform a chaotic, barren world into an orderly factory which produces useful things that help you tame more of the chaos. You convert more and more of the chaos into order, and you grow the walls of the civilization. So, with this in mind, as I said, I think that this runs so deep that it would be possible to create some kind of a parody lecture, shall we say, of Jordan Peterson talking about Factorio. I will caveat that this is not generated by AI. I wrote this lecture, and I am going to do a very bad Jordan Peterson voice and attempt to get his... I'm not going to do it as well as maybe a professional impersonator could do, but I will try my best. So here we go. The hero is the one who goes out past the walls of the factory. And you see, that's where all the order is. Beyond the walls, that's chaos. There are dragons and monsters and biters out there. And the hero, it's the funniest thing. He's like a golden tool. He can craft anything out of raw materials. He literally transforms the chaos around him into order. And he goes out and he defeats the biters. Because you have to understand that the biters are guarding something valuable. And if the hero can slay the biters, he can expand the walls of the factory and create even more order out of chaos. And that's a very good thing. It's a very good thing indeed. It's the highest good that you can conceive of. But you have to understand there's actually more to it than that. The hero is climbing a dominance hierarchy. Sure, it might look like a tech tree, but it's not. It represents the voluntary acceptance and therefore transcendence of suffering itself. Well, how is that? You see, the hero was marooned on this planet. And isn't that a little bit like our own lives? We're all kind of thrown into the world. And that's exactly the sort of thing Martin Heidegger and the phenomenologists were talking about. The hero is thrown into a chaotic world, and he must transform it into order, climb up a dominance hierarchy, and build a rocket to escape the planet. But you see, this isn't just an ordinary rocket. Oh no, it's much deeper than that, because the rocket is just a symbol of transcendence. The core message of Factorio, and it's really important you understand this, the core message of Factorio is simple. If you can transform chaos into order, you will become the hero and climb up dominance hierarchies. That works. You have to accept the suffering of the biters. It's unavoidable. You can't grow the factory without suffering, and you can't transcend suffering unless you grow the factory. It's such a simple and beautiful message, and I am stunned that we can just play the game and not notice that. Okay. Allow me to collect myself. Factorio's gameplay is oddly similar to everyday life. So there's this other thing about Factorio that I think that deeply resonates with human nature. The gameplay itself, it's like taking our own everyday life and transposing it on another planet where we can play out this kind of automation fantasy. So if you actually look at your day-to-day life, like if you just were to open it up and explore the contents of your day-to-day life, like what's in there? It's probably not something you're terribly proud of, right? So, most of us, like, what did I do yesterday? Let's see. I did talk about, I went on the stream, I talked. Okay, I did that. And then I went climbing, I did some social activities, so that was good. I got some exercise. But I had to go to the Costco, and then I had to go and get like a bike part for my partner because he needed that. And then I had to like come back home and get all the stuff from the Costco out of the car and into the fridge. And then I had to like go and get all the stuff out of the fridge. I made fish tacos for dinner. And so I needed to make sure that all the vegetables were cut up. And so there's all this like manual labor cutting up the vegetables and then putting it into different containers and, mise en place, whatever. And then I made these delicious fish tacos. And then after that, of course, we have to take the dogs on a walk. And so we go take the dogs on a walk. Then I come back in here and I did little bit of programming before I went to bed. Okay, so my day, I would say, and yours also probably, unless you're super rich or somehow have access to unfathomable technology, my day is mostly dominated with these like tiny like micro logistical tasks. I guess some of them are macro logistical tasks. There's a lot of logistics in my life. It's a lot of like going to buildings and getting stuff and then coming back and then assembling things, right? So what I would say is Factorio is compelling because it presents us with a kind of automation fantasy where all of this daily drudgery that we're so accustomed to is handled by friendly robots. You're actually able to automate your way out of the daily drudgery in Factorio in a way that you are unable to do so in your ordinary life. And that is compelling. Okay. So the next thing I would say is games are not separate from our past literary traditions. I believe that video games continue the same themes as our past literary traditions, precisely because human nature is a product of biological evolution. It takes a very long time for human nature to change, okay? So it's no surprise to me that there is a continuous thread between the types of narratives that Joseph Campbell talks about in literature and the types of gameplay and narratives that we find in some of the most popular video games today, the most successful video games today. So this leads me to my conclusion, which is where I've arrived in game design. I think games are at their best when they bring a deep emergent truth down to the level of our evolved instincts. And I believe Factorio achieves that vision. Factorio is not an abstract puzzle game which is only accessible to people who are willing to go long periods without a dopamine hit. Factorio is also not a crappy dopamine hit driven game like Farmville with no depth. So it achieves, in my view, the best of both worlds. I believe Factorio is the collision of deep emergent gameplay with everyday human reality, and that's why I think it's so great. So I'll stop there. And maybe, I don't know if I will actually, I'm not sure if I will play the game. If there are any questions, I'd be willing to entertain them. All right, this has been a lot of fun. We'll talk soon.